or so I kept telling myself. Glory Sarija wasn't really happy to see me camped on her front doorstep. I'd been standing on the porch for 10 minutes before she finally opened the door. I'd knocked on the dented aluminum door a half-dozen times. "Detective Cross, it's late, you know. Can't we be allowed to move on with our lives?" she asked as she finally swung open the door. "It's hard for us to forget the Sanderses. We don't need you to remind us over and over." "I know you don't," I agreed with the tall, late 40-ish woman eyeballing me. Almond-shaped eyes. Pretty eyes on a not very pretty face. "These are murder cases, though, Mrs. Sarija. Terrible murders." "The killer has been caught," she said to me. "Do you know that, Detective Cross? Have you heard? Do you read newspapers?" I felt like crap being out there again. I believe she suspected I was crazy. She was a smart lady. Oh, Jesus Christ. I shook my head and laughed out loud. "You know, you're absolutely right. I'm just fucked up. I'm sorry. I really am." That caught her off guard, and Glory Sarija smiled back at me. It was a kindly, crooked-toothed grin that you see sometimes in the projects. "Invite this poor nigger in for some coffee," I said. "I'm crazy, but at least I know it. Open the door for me." All right. Why don't you come in then, Detective? We can talk one more time. That's it, though." "That's it," I agreed with her. I had broken through by simply telling her the truth about myself. We drank bad instant coffee in her tiny kitchen. Actually, she loved to talk. Glory Sarija asked me all sorts of questions about the trial. She wanted to know what it was like being on TV. Like many people, she was curious about the actress Catherine Rose. Glory Sarija even had her own private theory about the kidnapping. "That man didn't do it. That Gary Sinigi or Murphy or whoever he is. Somebody set him up, you see," she said and laughed. I suppose she thought it was funny that she was sharing her crazy ideas with a crazy D.C. policeman. "Humor me one last time," I said, finally getting around to what I really wanted to talk to her about. "Run me through what Nina said she saw that night. Tell me what Nina told you, as close as you remember it. Why are you doing this to yourself?" Gloria wanted to know from me first. "Why are you here at 10 o'clock at night?" "I don't know why, Glory." I shrugged and sipped the truly bad-tasting coffee. "Maybe it's because I need to know why I was chosen down in Miami. I don't know for sure, but here I am." "It's made you crazy, hasn't it? The kidnapping of those children." "Yes, it's made me crazy." "Tell me again what Nina saw. Tell me about the man in the car with Gary Sinigi." "Nina, ever since she'd been little, she loved the window seat on our stairway." Glory began the story again. "That's Nina's window on the world. Always has been. She'd curl up there and read a book or just pet one of her cats. Sometimes she'd just stare out at nothing. She was at the window seat when she saw that white man, Gary Sinigi. We get few white men in the neighborhood. Black, some Hispanic sometimes. So he caught her eye. The more she watched, the stranger it seemed to her. Like she told you, he was watching the Sanderses' house. Like he was spying on the house or something. And the other man, the one in the car, he was watching him watch the house." Bingo! My tired, overloaded mind somehow managed to catch the key phrase in what she'd just said. Gloria Sarija was all set to go on, but I stopped her. "You just said the man in the car was watching Gary Sinigi. You said he was watching him." "I did say that, didn't I? I forgot all about it. Nina been saying the men was together, like a salesman team or something. You know, the way they come stake out a street sometimes? But way back, she told me the man in the car was watching the other one. I believe that's what she said. I'm almost sure. Let me get Nina. I'm not so sure anymore. Soon the three of us were sitting together and talking. Mrs. Sarizia helped me with Nina, and Nina finally cooperated. Yes, she was sure the man in the car had been watching Gary Sinigi. The man wasn't there with Sinigi. Nina Sarizia definitely remembered the man in the car watching the other man. She didn't know whether it had been a white or a black man watching. She hadn't mentioned it before because it didn't seem important, and the police would have asked even more questions. Like most kids in Southeast, Nina hated the police and was afraid of them. The man in the car had been watching Gary Sinigi. Maybe there hadn't been an accomplice after all, but someone watching Gary Sinigi Murphy as he staked out potential murder victims. Who could it have been? Chapter 71. I was allowed to visit Sinigi Murphy, but only in connection with the Sanders and Turner murder investigations. I could see him about crimes that would probably never go to trial, but not about one that could possibly remain unsolved. So goes the tale of the red tape. I had a friend out at Fallston, where Gary was imprisoned. I'd known Wallace Hart, the chief of psychiatry at Fallston, since I'd joined the D.C. police force. Wallace was waiting for me in the lobby of the ancient facility. I like this kind of personal attention, I said as I shook his hand. First time I've ever gotten any, of course. You're a celebrity now, Alex. I saw you on the tube. Wallace is a small, scholarly-looking black man who wears round bottle glasses and baggy blue business suits. He reminds people of George Washington Carver, maybe crossed with Woody Allen. He looks as if he were black and Jewish. What do you think about Gary so far? I asked Wallace as we took a prison elevator up to the maximum security floor. Model prisoner? I've always had a soft spot for psychopaths, Alex. They keep shit interesting. Imagine life without the real bad guys. Very boring. You're not buying the possibility of multiple personalities, I take it? I think it's a possibility, but very slim. Either way, the bad boy in him is really bad. I'm surprised he got his ass in a sling, though. I'm surprised he got caught. I said, want to hear one off-the-wall theory? Gary Murphy caught Sinigi. Gary Murphy couldn't handle Sinigi, so he turned him in. Wallace grinned at me. He had a big toothy smile for such a little face. Alex, I do like your crazy mind, but do you really buy that? One side turning in the other? Nope. I just wanted to see if you would. I'm beginning to think he's a psycho all the way. I just need to know how far all the way is. I observed a definite paranoid personality disorder when I was seeing him. I agree with that. He's mistrustful, demanding, arrogant, driven. Like I say, I love the guy. I was a little shocked when I finally saw Gary this time. His eyes appeared to be sunken into his skull. The orbs were red-rimmed, as if he were suffering from conjunctivitis. The skin was pulled tight all around his face. He'd lost a lot of weight, maybe 30 pounds, and he'd been fit and trim to begin with. So I'm a little depressed. Hello, doctor. He looked up from his cot and spoke to me. He was Gary Murphy again. At least he seemed to be. Hello, Gary, I said. I couldn't stay away. Long time no visits. You must want something. Let me guess. You're doing a book about me. You want to be the next Anne Rule? I shook my head. I wanted to come and see you long before this. I had to get a court order first. I'm here to talk about the Sanders and Turner murders, actually. Really? He seemed resigned, and his effect was indifferent and passive. I didn't like the way he looked. It struck me that his personality could be on the verge of complete disintegration. I'm only allowed to talk to you about the Sanders and Turner murders, in fact. That's my purview. But we could talk about Vivian Kim, if you like. Then we don't have a lot to talk about. I don't know anything about those killings. I haven't even read the newspapers. I swear on my daughter's life I haven't. Maybe our friend Saniji knows. Not me, Alex. He seems real comfortable calling me Alex by now. Nice to know you can make friends, anywhere. Your lawyer must have explained the murder cases to you. There could be another trial this year. I won't see any more lawyers. It's got nothing to do with me. Besides, those cases won't get to trial. Too expensive. Gary, I talked to him as if he were a patient of mine. I'd like to put you under hypnosis again. Will you sign the papers if I can get all the bullshit arranged? It's important for me to talk to Saniji. Let me try to talk to him. Gary Murphy smiled and he shook his head. Finally he nodded. Actually, I'd like to talk with him myself, he said. If I could, I'd kill him. I would kill Saniji. Like I'm supposed to have killed all those other people. That evening, I went to see former Secret Service agent Mike Devine. Devine was one of the two agents who had been assigned to Secretary Goldberg and his family. I wanted to ask him about the accomplice theory. Mike Devine had taken voluntary retirement about a month after the kidnapping. Because he was still in his mid-40s, I assumed he'd been pushed out of his job. We talked for a couple of hours out on his stone terrace overlooking the Potomac. It was a tasteful, well-appointed apartment for a now single man. Devine was tan and looked rested. He was one of the better advertisements I'd seen for getting out of police work while you can. He reminded me a little of Travis McGee in the John McDonnell novels. He was well-built, with lots of character in his face. He'd do well in early retirement land, I thought. Movie hero good looks, lots of curly brown hair, an easy smile, stories galore. My partner and I were pushed out, you know, Devine confessed over a couple of Corona beers. One fuck-up that happened to turn into World War III, and we were both history at the service. We didn't get a lot of support from our boss, either. It was a public case. I guess there had to be heroes and villains. I could be as philosophical as the next guy over a cold beer. Maybe it's all for the best, Mike Devine mused. You ever think about starting over? Doing something else while you still have the energy? Before the Alzheimer's sets in? I've thought about private practice, I said to Devine. I'm a psychologist. I still do some pro bono work in the projects. But you love the job too much to leave it? Mike Devine grinned and squinted into late afternoon sunlight coming off the water. Gray seabirds with white chests flew right by the terrace. Nice. Everything about the layout was nice. Listen, Mike, I wanted to go over once more those last couple of days before the kidnapping, I said to him. You are goddamn hooked, Alex. I've been over every square inch of that territory myself. Believe me, there's nothing there. It's fallow ground. Nothing grows. I've tried, and finally I gave up the ghost. I believe you, but I'm still curious about a late-model sedan that might have been seen out in Potomac. Possibly a Dodge, I said. It was the car that Nina Sarija remembered parked on Langley Terrace. "You have a